Hey guys, so as promised, I'm bringing my dream journal alive to you and telling you about my lucid dreams. So this dream happened last night. It started out where I'm in the back of a Jeep being driven by two men. It's a red Jeep and there's a red truck following us with another two men. And we pull into this parking lot. It's at night. It's very dark. We all get out. We go into a store. The store that I go into is where I used to work. I go up and I try to punch in to the time clock, but my time card is gone. My boss comes over and she's like, "What are you doing?" Because I'm looking around for the time card. She's like, "What are you doing? Why aren't you working?" And I'm like, "I can't find my time card. I think somebody threw it away." And she starts like accusing me of losing it, and she starts to become like really mean and degrading to me. And so I'm like, this is ridiculous. I'm like, I'm leaving. So I run out to the parking lot and I'm like trying to find the Jeep, and I can't find the Jeep, but I do find the red truck. And the two guys from the red truck are like getting in, and they're like just starting to like turn the engine on, and so I like run and jump onto the back of the truck and like hang on, and they back up and start to drive away. Well, they drive like a few feet down, and then I notice there's the red Jeep. So they stop, I get off, and they drive off. At this point, I somehow become aware that I'm dreaming. So I look down and I count my fingers, and my hands are all crazy. I can't count my fingers. I've got like way too many fingers on each hand. So I'm like, this is a dream. And I'm like, okay, I've heard this really cool thing from another YouTuber. I want to do this like weird little experiment. So I lean towards one of the guys and I'm like, hey, you know you're dreaming, right? And him and the other guy like look kind of shocked and puzzled. They kind of like look around, and then they look at each other, and they look back at me. And the one that I said this to was like, no, I'm not, and here's why. And then he starts rambling on, and I'm like, I realize I'm not going to be able to convince him. So I just turn and leave. I mean, he's still talking, and I'm just like, whatever. And I turn and I start to walk away, but then I start to wake up, but I don't really. It's a false awakening. So I wake up into another dream, and this time I'm sitting in a bedroom, and there's these two men that come in, and like I'm sitting on the bed, they come in through the door over here, and they're like really upset and agitated, and one of them is like desperately looking for something. He opens this drawer and he grabs out like this glass jar, and he sets it down on the bed. He sits down and he just starts like pulling stuff out of it. His friend is like, come on man, we have to go, we're going to be late for the wedding. And so he gets up and puts the jar back in the drawer, and he's like, man, I still can't find the ring. Like, she's going to be so mad. We're not even ready yet. We're going to be late. She's going to be so mad. And they walk off. But something just said, you're dreaming. And so I look at my hands. I count my hands, my fingers again. Only this time I notice my hands look more realistic than last time. And it's almost kind of hard for me to realize that, like, I'm not counting the right number of fingers because there's only like one extra finger until I start looking longer and really studying them, and then I'm like, okay, yeah, they're like totally messed up. At this point, I have a hard time remembering exactly what I did, but I think that I like looked up towards like the sky, and I like yelled, I want to become more aware. I think that that's what I yelled. I know that I yelled something because I talk in my sleep, and I didn't realize that this would affect me so drastically, but I actually heard myself talking like in my real body as I was yelling this towards the ceiling. And so I like woke myself back up again, but only for like a millisecond, and then I was like fell back asleep and was back in the dream. And this time I have another false awakening where I wake up actually in a bed. So I get up and I start walking around, and off to like the left side of the room there's like this corridor, and there's these two people in there talking. There's a man and a woman, and I overhear the conversation that this man and woman are having. The man says that he enjoys watching lesbians have sex just as much as he enjoys watching heterosexual sex. The woman's really offended. She's obviously like a very Christian woman, and she's like, what? Why? How could that be? Like, how could anything be better than heterosexual sex between one man and one woman? And the guy, he says, because you see these two hot women getting wet and horny, and you just know they want like a big man to come in and F them both. And I was like kind of shocked to hear this like crazy conversation, but at the same time I was like, that's ridiculous. So I go, ha! I see them kind of like storm out looking disgruntled, and I'm like, okay, obviously you got the point that like, that's a ridiculous statement to make. They're lesbians because they don't want a man. So at this point, I was thinking, I have already been in a dream twice now and had a false awakening twice. So maybe I'm actually still asleep. So I look at my hands and I start to count my fingers, and my hands look so incredibly realistic. I actually count 10 fingers, but I feel like there's something wrong. Like maybe I counted too fast, or I kind of see like one of the fingers jump, and I'm like, that doesn't look right. So I look harder. And then I start noticing like my fingers are like multiplying. I'm like, I have way too many fingers. And I'm like, okay, no, this is definitely a dream. And I'm like, okay, I don't want to ruin this like the last two times. I don't want to wake up. So I just stop and I take like a calming breath, and I like set my intentions for what I want to do. And then I just turn and I walk out the corridor that the people had just been standing in. And right past the corridor, I see a door, and I start heading towards it, and then I notice this little cubby area off to the left with this desk, and there's this secretary, and she's got red curly hair, and she like jumps up, and she's like shocked to see me like walking through there. So I just ignore her, even though she seems to recognize that there's something different, that I've become lucid. Like, that's why she's shocked and upset, and she's jumping up, and she like wants to stop me, but she doesn't know what to do. She doesn't know how. So I'm just like, whatever. I walk out the door, and I'm instantly in this like big city block plaza with all these like huge skyscraper buildings, and there's all these people walking around. And the moment I step out the door, this woman, and she has this brown bag like on her side with like a shoulder strap going across, and like she just makes a beeline towards me, and she rams into me, and she tells me something, and whatever she said was incredibly bizarre, but I don't remember what it was. I just know that it was really bizarre, and I was like, what the heck? Like, what are you talking about? And then she just walks off. And then before I could do anything, this man comes from around the corner. He's wearing like nice kind of businessy attire, and he's also got like one of these brown bags. And he like, we make eye contact for just a split second, and his eyes are like alive, man. There's like electricity there, and he's like kind of excited, and he makes a beeline towards me and rams into me, and he says something like really close to me too. And then, but this time I like kind of try to like walk with him for a little bit, and I'm like, what do you mean? What do you mean? And he like says like one line, and then he is gone. I mean gone. Like, I can't follow him. And I don't remember what he said. So now I'm like really freaked out. I'm like, what is going on here? Well, a third guy, or well, a second guy, but a third person, he's wearing like a gray suit, again with one of these brown bags with the shoulder strap, and he makes a beeline towards me, rams into me, and he says, "You're fine except the leaf that she put in your left foot." What? What woman? Who is she? What leaf? Why is it in my left foot? What is it going to do? I'm trying to like follow with him and ask him like, what do you mean? What are you talking about? Like, what's going on with my foot? But this other guy, another guy in a gray suit, again with a bag, but he's holding a newspaper, he comes and pushes up against my other side, like squeezes me out and starts talking to this guy about like business stuff. And they both kind of have like a moment where they look back and they look at me, but they're already talking business, and so they turn back around and they just keep going. And I'm like, okay, I need to get somewhere else, because I have intentions for what I want to do, and I need to make it happen. So I walk to a different area, and now I'm in this like little courtyard. There's only like maybe 3 people there, and I'm just like, ignore them all. And I look up, and this time I can remember, like I said, the last couple of dreams that I had. So I'm like, I can't talk too loud, or else I'll talk in my sleep and I'll hear it and I'll wake up. So I say very quietly, who is the most important person in this dream? There's this black woman who is wearing really vivid purple, like the color of my shirt actually, this like long purple dress. And she stood out as soon as I got into this courtyard, and I could see her looking at me, but I was like, no, ignore it. And I thought if I ignored it, that like she wouldn't mess with me. But before I can finish what I'm saying, she is like on me. Like now she is walking towards me, and she rams into me. And she says, "I'm Roscoe." Like she says it that fast. Like, you know, again, like everybody else has, like kind of in my ear. And I'm like, what are you talking about? Are you saying I'm a Roscoe or I'm a Roscoe? I have no clue what you just said, or what it even means if you did say it. But she's different, because she like grabs me and she like drags me over to this little U-shaped bar area that's set up in the courtyard, and she sits me down on a stool, and she sits on my left, and she looks at this woman that's like around like one of the corners from us, and she says to this woman, "How did this happen?" And the woman says, "I don't know, like, I think that it started with the end of my marriage," and she starts rambling on about her divorce. And I'm like staring at this black woman, I'm like, why are you mad that I'm lucid in my dream? Because I could tell, like, the reason why she came and bombarded me, she did not want me talking to this guy, she did not want me saying the word dream, she didn't want me lucid. And then I'm like, this is ridiculous. You're both ignoring me, and you're telling some stupid story about your divorce, and I don't care to hear it. So I start getting disinterested, and this is when I notice that, like, I start to lose the dream, and I freak out, and I'm like, no, don't lose the dream, don't lose the dream. And there's this technique where you can rub your hands together to keep yourself in the dream. So I'm like, rub your hands, and like I look down to try to see my hands, but all I can see is white. And then I'm very much aware of being like in my body, in my bed. And then I'm like, wait a minute, what if this is a false awakening? And I like count my fingers, and I like pause, and I like really stare at them and count them, and I'm like, okay, no, I'm awake. So completely bizarre. I have no words for this. I really hope that there's some other lucid dreamers out there that maybe have had a similar experience. Have you ever had characters act like this before? Have you ever experienced anything even remotely like this before? What is this? What does it mean? Why do these characters seem so different from normal dream characters? And what is their purpose? And just any answers that you can give me would be awesome. Also, by the way, this is like only really what I would consider like my third really lucid dream that I've ever had. I'm really proud that I was able to reach this level so quickly, and I'm still doing all the things that I taught in my How to Lucid Dream video, but I've also added on to that a couple of elements. So I'm going to be making an update video to that to teach you my new techniques to really have a very powerful lucid dream quickly and easily. So stay tuned for that. See you later, guys.